good evening. Well, I don't know if it's a good evening.
Not a good evening.
Welcome to the Fanatical Postgame Browns show, where the Browns, yes, had a mile-high flub up. Lord have mercy. It's a struggle right now. We are pissed off at the Fanatical Elves Network, and we have a lot to talk about. We have the Village Elliott with us. We have Samuel Britton joining us again. I know Sam and I did our show this morning, and we talked initially. There's a lot to dissect in this game.
We were happy back then.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about was the Browns not turning the ball over, and the Browns turned the ball over 3 times, which basically was the
all fumbles too.
Yeah, just a backbreaker. Lots of things to dissect. Dorian Thompson-Robinson going down with an injury, concussed. We have other major news with Amari Cooper being hammered to the ribs. It sounds like they're negative initially. We also have Myles Garrett, who has been reporting that he heard something pop in his shoulder. Lord have mercy. Mary Kay Cabot's reporting that. Not a fan of any shoulder news, and Browns fans are spinning out of control right now. We're 7-4, but you would have thought that this team was 4-7 going into this game the way that they played. They got down early again, 14-0. They tried to make an attempt at coming back, but the offense sputtered. They could only get field goals. They did finally climb back into it, almost tied the game in the third quarter, got to within 14-12, and that's when Dorian Thompson-Robinson got hurt a little bit later, put in P.J. Walker, who then Kevin Stefanski decided, like Village Elliott's going to explain in a minute, let's just hand the ball off to a player that hasn't had the ball off on a double reverse or a single reverse, and causing major problems. Fumble, Broncos take over. We'll talk all about that here as we get into this. So welcome, Village Elliott. Welcome, Samuel. How are you feeling today?
I'm going to say something first. First of all, I think you should have started with sobbing music, not that upbeat music, because there's nothing here that's upbeat. I don't know, man. That was just really gross. It was the 3 fumbles. Let's be honest. The 3 fumbles killed us.
Yeah.
You can't. 3 fumbles is 3 turnovers in a game automatically is bad, but 3 fumbles is unbelievable. The fact that you're having 3 fumbles in a game is insane. Some of those reverses were stupid. I don't know what we were thinking. Those are just bound to fail. That drop, that first 4th down when Harrison Bryant wasn't able to get the football and that defensive lineman got on it. That's the second I knew the game was over, in my opinion.
Yeah. Village Elliott, are you seething still? Seething?
Oh, man, it's taking every ounce of willpower in order to stay within FCC guidelines on this broadcast. I just want to spew obscenities, but I know that I can't, John. And out of sheer respect for you and Sam, I'm going to try to keep the broadcast clean, but I am just really angry.
Yes.
Normally, I have defended Coach Stefanski against people who say, well, I don't like his play calling, and then they can't tell you what's wrong with the play calling. I can tell you what's wrong with the play calling in this particular game. And if you want, I can spend a few minutes. Would you like to hear what's wrong?
Go ahead. Yes, I'd love to.
Okay, there's a couple of things. I've been saying that the Browns are a defensive football team. They're not an offensive football team, but they gave so much respect to the Denver Broncos, worst in the NFL defense. And I would say that it was like Aretha Franklin was the offensive play caller for the Cleveland Browns. RESPECT. That's what they gave the Denver Broncos. RESPECT. They were in fear of the Denver Broncos defense. They felt that they had to take chance after chance after chance. They needed trick play after trick play after trick play in order to compete with the Denver Broncos defense. It was outrageous that they would give, a double reverse handoff to a guy that hadn't even touched the ball. I do not fault Pierre Strong's execution on that play. In fact, Elliott's execution was called for on that play.
Let me just interrupt you.
That was ridiculous.
Let me interrupt one thing about, like, where you're going with that, because
And I was just getting
immediately
warmed up, dude.
I know immediately the other half of the fan base, they love to throw out the whole execution. The players aren't executing the plays, and thus Kevin Stefanski is a brilliant play caller, and we should never scold Kevin Stefanski because the players are just not executing. And I want to just say, in that moment, in that second, after Dorian Thompson-Robinson gets beaten, bloodied by a dirty hit by the Denver Broncos, you come back, you throw in PJ Walker, and he tries to do a reverse in that moment was absolutely a crime, and Stefanski has to be held accountable for that. And any idiot fan guy out there who writes about the Browns, who I could share right now who that is right now, and there's a bazillion other guys like that. That play in itself was a crime, and that, like you said, that's not on Pierre. That's on Stefanski for being too cute, like he has been for his entire career, and he tries to outthink everybody, and everybody, including myself, want to give the guy credit, and credit is due. But in that moment, that was a really boneheaded move, and it cost those Browns. I don't know how he reacted to after that, but that was a really, really awful moment.
Well, the thing is the formula is very simple. The Denver Broncos had the worst run defense in the NFL. The Browns were in a position where they needed to run the football, and in the second half, the run defense is at its worst. The Browns' run offense is at its best. Yeah. I don't care if you're behind in the second half when you've got a run offense that can gain 5 and 6 yards per carry. Go ahead and run the football when you're getting 5 and 6 yards per carry.
And when we saw them get the success in that initial drive in the third quarter where they scored the touchdown, they did that. They ran the ball. They were consistent at mixing it up. They burned 6 minutes on the clock, went all the way down the field, and you're right there. It's 14-12. You're right back in it. And
well, let me throw some numbers at you. Jerome Ford, okay, now we've sometimes criticized Jerome, but the fact of the matter is that he's been developing before our eyes, and he's been improving week to week. He no longer does this thing where he slows down going up to the line of scrimmage. I think Kareem Hunt has been a great influence on him in this regard. But anyway, the raw numbers are that he carried the ball only 9 times, but he gained 65 yards. That's 7.2 yards per carry. 7.2 yards per carry. And yet the Browns acted like they were totally in fear of the number 32 rush defense in the NFL. They were totally petrified of the number 32 run defense in the NFL. Now, Kareem Hunt was not quite as sharp, but remember, he gets a lot of tough yards. They send him when it's like 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 for that matter. He was 7 attempts, 22 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. That's still pretty good. The Browns
16 runs between the two of them, 42 passes.
Yeah, so they were on their way to getting 5-6 yards per carry in the second half. They also had some dud runs by Harrison Bryant, 1 carry, 0 yards. Elijah Moore, 1 carry, 0 yards. But they were gaining yards. They were winning on the ground. And yet they were so afraid to run the ball in the second half. And instead they wanted to rely on trick plays and double reverses. They did this kind of stuff down by the goal line. It worked. Yeah. And they got the ball to Harrison Bryant and all that kind of stuff, all these cutie pie, mystifying plays where they just absolutely dazzled us with the intellect of the head coach designing these plays. But
Elliot, let me hear from Samuel real quick. I did want to say something, Sam, right before you say anything here. When Sam and I were talking this morning on the pregame show, I was telling him how Jess from the Mile High podcasting crew out there in Denver talked about how, the one big weakness, like we've already pointed out, was the Denver run defense. And so, Sam, what do you think about all what we've been talking about right now with the run?
Yeah, I got one talking about the run, but I got one positive that I know is a little off topic, but Cedric Tillman looks pretty good that game. I think Cedric Tillman
Yeah,
looked actually
he
pretty
caught a
decent.
few.
He wasn't insane, but he looked pretty decent. But yeah, on the run game, they looked scared. And there was the one big run where Jerome Ford he got like what 13-ish yards or something, and it wasn't the run where he got like destroyed by that Broncos guy and just completely stopped. It was the other one where he kind of
Right.
hooked around the edge and got that good block.
Yeah.
And he looked really fast. He looked like he knew what he was doing. He felt he found the hole. He went to it. He also he slowed down for his blocker a little too, which is very important also. But he looked good. I think I don't know why we didn't run the ball more. It looked like such a good matchup. I mean, the Broncos were the worst, as Elliot has said like 85 times, the worst defense run wise in the NFL, and we just didn't run the ball.
Let me ask you this, because this is like a general question I want to know from both of you, because this is going back to this whole scheme stuff with Stefanski and all this stuff about execution, all this stuff. So historically, Stefanski, the gripe has been what we're talking about here, that he doesn't recognize where his strengths are on the offensive side of the ball, and he goes away from what those things are. He ran the ball 16 times between Ford and Hunt, threw the ball 42 times. Now you go back last week. Let me just throw this out at you with Pittsburgh. It was pretty balanced in that first half. If you go back and look at the stats from the first half of the Steeler-Brown game, it was very even. It was like 18 runs, 19 passes. Okay. But the second half, again, he was forcing the issue again in a game where it was right there. It was tied, or the Browns had a lead, and yet he had DTR throwing the ball, 23 or 24 times in that second half, and only ran the ball, 16 or 17 times. I know it's not exactly, there's not a huge disparity there, but again, it's this love affair that Stefanski has with his quarterbacks and doing all this razzle-dazzle crap, trying to throw the ball when he doesn't have the guys that he really needs. And every time we think he's changing and that he recognizes where the strengths are for this team, he throws a game like this out there, and we're all going, what the hell? So anyway, Sam, any final takes there? We'll come back to you here in a minute, but I know I kind of cut you off. Yeah.
I don't know. Hey, it's super weird because you're right. He did do a bunch of weird trick plays that felt completely unnecessary. That one to Harrison Bryant wasn't abysmal. I mean, that one was decent.
Yeah.
But it's just it's unnecessary. And yeah, you got a point. He will throw out a good game, and you're like, oh wow, he's actually maybe learning. He's realizing he shouldn't be throwing all these balls. But in my opinion, I think he plays desperate football. He plays football where he thinks that we should be passing the ball every single play, and that if we're down by 3, we're with like a minute left in the second quarter, or maybe that's not a good example, but like 7 minutes left in the second quarter, that we're like, all right, throw the ball 6 times. Like, but that's not how you do it. You got to set up the pass by using the run, and he sets up the pass by passing. Like, that's not how you do it.
Denver ran the ball 36 times and passed the ball 22 times in this game.
Yeah, because they knew it worked, and we
obviously they had better field position, and they had some turnovers. But it's just.
But I mean, Javonte Williams had more carries than our entire running back core combined.
Yeah,
-1 actually. He had 18. We had 19, I believe.
Yeah.
Or no, that's wrong. Never mind. But he was close.
Drink Diet Coke if you can tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to pause for a quick break. We'll be right back. This is the Fanatical Postgame Show where the Browns, had a mile-high flub. We'll be right back. And we're back. How is everybody? Thank you for those great commercials. Yeah, we're pretty depressed here. Yeah. Now, Samuel, your mom is a big Broncos fan, so I'm surprised she didn't want to join us on this podcast. But how's it going there? Are you doing okay?
Yeah. She wasn't. She realized that she was kind of sad for me. She's like, "Man, your team is falling apart." When DTR went out, she's like, "Yeah, I'm not even gonna say anything anymore. I'm sorry." And then when Amari went out, she's like, "I give up. I'm not even gonna say anything. Just wallow in your sorrow. I get it." She knows what it feels like to suck, because last year that was abysmal for the Broncos.
Well, and that's what we thought we were going to see, especially when the Broncos started the season off at 1-5. They've now run off 5 straight wins. They're 6-5 and are positioning themselves to overtake probably the Browns in a week or two for the playoff push. It's very dismal right now in Cleveland right now as a Browns fan. The reports are that, Mari Cooper injured his ribs pretty good. Didn't break anything, we don't think, but, rib injuries
I'll do
can
some
be.
more detailed scanning probably tomorrow.
Myles Garrett's reporting that he has a pop in his shoulder.
Definitely going to do some more detailed scanning tomorrow for him.
Yeah, I mean, so
Scan
it's
him
not
twice.
looking good. And the Rams ran over the Cardinals. We beat the Cardinals earlier in the year, but now the Rams are coming home, to play the Browns, and the Browns have to travel out there or stay out there and play another game where they haven't beaten. Let me just explain this to everybody. They have not beaten anybody. They have not beaten the Rams, I'm sorry, in 30 years. They haven't out there in Los Angeles or any Rams team. They haven't beat in 30 years. So all of you folks who say, "Oh, well, we're going to roll over them because they're 5-6 and we're 7-4," throw that out the window. It doesn't mean squat. We just saw that in this game today, where the Broncos were coming in 5-5, the Browns were 7-3, and the Browns got steamrolled. Mile High Flub. Elliot, we haven't heard from you. I'm sorry. Get back to you now.
I've got about 3 more rants saved up, dude.
Yes, let's go.
All right. First of all, I really liked what Sam had to say about playing desperate football for no reason. Boy, is that spot on. I think that's exactly the problem. I think what we're seeing is the head coach playing against the defensive coordinator. And by that, I mean, we're playing unnecessary offensive football because we don't want the defense to get too much credit. This is not the way to win football games. The Browns do not win football games by having showboating offensive tactics, hero ball. Yeah. We do not win with hero ball. Yeah. We win because we have a defense that can hold the opposition. It's just not going to work for the Cleveland Browns to make up all these razzle-dazzle plays because they do not have personnel that are talented enough to execute them. Yeah. They are going to lose football games when they're going to try these multiple reverse plays, trick plays on offense and stuff like that, and try to win like that. They will win by minimizing turnovers and letting the defense cause turnovers to the other team. That is how they will win. That's rant number 1. And Sam, I'm indebted to you for describing it exactly.
I love it. Yeah.
I really like that. That's a real good phrase, a desperate offense. Truly. Let me ask another stupid question that we didn't talk about, but I've been ranting about this all season. What would have happened if PJ Walker had gotten injured? Who was the backup quarterback at the end of the game?
Oh, I thought about that too. Absolutely.
And the answer is?
I'm going to throw out Harrison Bryant or Elijah Moore.
Harrison Bryant and Elijah Moore. That's the backup quarterback. The Browns do not have a contingency plan if they have an injury. They did not have a backup quarterback. They only had 2 quarterbacks on the roster for that game. That's ridiculous.
No, but to be fair, how many teams, Elliot, well, wait a second. How many teams in the NFL honestly have more than just the one backup?
The Pittsburgh Steelers have always had 3 quarterbacks, and I don't see why we don't do what the Pittsburgh Steelers did. They at least ought to have somebody on the practice squad. There are 16 spots on the practice squad, and somebody ought to be learning the playbook. Yeah. They finally got Joe Flacco, but all we saw from Joe Flacco was that he can play catch. That's the only thing that we saw on Twitter is he can still play catch. I don't know that he's in football shape at all. Right. They only tried out 1 quarterback for that job. I don't know that he's ready at all. I think they ought to have somebody else that can play. They certainly ought to have somebody on the practice squad that they elevate to be in a position to come in if they need a quarterback. This is really ridiculous that they only had 2 quarterbacks that were available to play. It's really ridiculous. That's just not acceptable. This is lack of planning. Yeah, it's completely absurd. I've been saying this since the get-go that they do not have enough quarterbacks when they knew that they had an injury situation possible with Deshaun Watson having a sore shoulder, and there were signs that they might run into this problem.
Yeah.
And they're dealing with a quarterback that is 208 pounds or something. He's not as big as Baker Mayfield.
Sure.
This is foreseeable that there's going to be an injury situation with this kid. Yep. And they need to have somebody on the practice squad at least that knows the playbook. It's very simple.
Well, so where do we so where do we go from here?
Sign somebody. I threw out, my guy. My guy is Garrett Gilbert, who's been with the team before. He's available, and he's big, strong, and can throw the ball.
So they're going to have to.
Pittsburgh Steelers when he signed with the Denver Broncos after being cut by the Browns and Stefanski.
Yeah. So
it's a no-brainer. Yeah. They need another quarterback. Sign somebody to be on the practice squad.
So all Browns fans are pretty much pissed off tonight. There's not a lot of positives coming out of this game. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to talk about this week. Obviously, number one, Kevin Stefanski again leads the headlines because of his just unexcusable play calls, and those other fans that are against Stefanski supporters will endlessly tell us again how the Browns player Pierre Strong should have, handled the ball better, or the lateral should have worked better with the.
I don't blame Pierre Strong.
Oh, I don't either. So where do we go? So now we're in this position where the Browns are still sitting at 7-4. Pittsburgh beat Cincinnati earlier today. Cincinnati's looking like they're fading. So it's really going to come down. I think the Ravens are playing tonight. Is that right? They're playing right now. Is that true?
Yeah,
I think they're.
Who are they playing? Are they
I'm
playing?
Trying to think.
They're playing the Chargers. Isn't that right?
Is that tonight? Yes, they are. And I think that game's in Baltimore. So, assuming that they're going to win this,
they showed it.
I think they're going to win that game. So let's just say, Baltimore is starting to kind of, with this loss for the Browns, that's going to be, I think, a 2-game lead potentially for the Ravens. But there's other teams like the Chiefs and now Denver rolling in that are doing well. The Browns they're still in control of their destiny, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But if they go out to Los Angeles next Sunday and put on
Chargers 3, Ravens 0,
they put on a show like they did today, I mean, the fan base is going to become livid, because then you got to play the Jacksonville Jaguars,
who look pretty good.
They're a pretty good team.
Good.
And they held on and beat a very hot Houston team. By the way, the Browns have to still play Houston in Houston. So I'm getting I'm a little nervous tonight. And I know there are a lot, including our contributors here on the Fanatical Elves, who want us to all not overreact, because it is going to be Overreaction Monday. But it is very worrisome when you start projecting out, and us Browns fans are really good at that, at trying to figure out what's going to happen next that's going to be bad. And today was really just such a bad moment for the team in so many different ways. And what do we have to look forward to? If you had to, because tonight, it's not feeling real good. Is there anything out there that we can hang our hat on moving forward?
Well, I want to say a couple other things that, I think on this show, we told you that the backup quarterback had a good relationship with Cedric Tillman.
Yep.
And that Cedric Tillman was going to come around because he was a good receiver, much like Rashard Higgins came along with Baker Mayfield when Baker Mayfield finally got his chance. And, this was really a deficiency that we had with Deshaun Watson, that he would not throw to Cedric Tillman for whatever reason. And so I feel good about that. I also think we called our shot that DTR is a halfway decent quarterback. He can run, he can throw the ball. He has some moxie. He's an intelligent quarterback. Now, the last play notwithstanding, where he just scrambled way too much, should have just thrown the football away, not gotten himself killed. Now he is too small. And that's going to be to his detriment. And that's why he's a backup quarterback and he didn't go in the first round. But I think we were fairly accurate in our prognostication for what's going on. And we also cautioned the fan base that we thought that
the Rams are
offensive coach is going to have a hard time putting his ego on the back burner.
I think that's I believe true. I really, your take on that, I think is not unique, but I do think it needs to be talked more about this situation.
Unique?
Well,
this past, the present,
Stefanski
and the future that is so
Schwartz.
difficult because Jim Schwartz is a superstar defensive coordinator, and it's so hard to let him do his thing. This is just like the 85 Chicago Bears and Mike Ditka and Buddy Ryan. Buddy was outshining the head coach, and that was.
But again, let me just stop you there, though, because this defense really blew it again to start the game. They get the team down 14-0 right off the bat.
They were still in it. They were still in it. If they had,
I know, but they don't. But they got to stop giving up 2 touchdowns and make our inept offense have to come back. That's on the defense.
If they had just run the ball, they would have won the game.
But why? But the idea again that I agree with you, but that you get down 14-0, that's on the defense, and no one wants to talk about that.
It is on the defense, but but that does not justify pulling out all these wonderful trick plays and stuff like that. That's
I
not
agree
the
with
way
you
that
there,
they're going to win the game.
Yeah,
you're right that the defense had some breakdowns. Denver is a good football team. Denver might have won anyway, and I guess I wouldn't have minded if they had won, let's say 21-17, if they had just outplayed the Browns and maybe they had, but the Browns outsmarting themselves. That's what we're really talking about, is that they decided they were going to have a 2-point conversion, and then they're going to have, the razzle dazzle, double reverse handoff, and that's the thing. When the Browns turned the ball over, they actually assume the risk of additional turnovers on offense. That's what we're really complaining about. Not the fact that they occasionally get beat by a good football team, but the fact that they willingly assume the risk of additional turnovers on offense, that they eschew the run in the second half against a terrible offensive or against a terrible run defense. That is really what's inexcusable, and it's because the offense feels that it needs to justify itself and be, an offensive mastermind, and that they were afraid of the worst defense in football. That's basically what I saw.
Well, Elliot, let me get down here to Sam. Samuel, looking ahead to this next, the final takes here on this game, and then looking ahead at Los Angeles and the Rams, where you think this team is headed this week?
All right. Well, so looking at the Rams, I don't have the game pulled up. Hold on. The Rams had, I think it was, by the way, the Ravens just scored a touchdown in case anyone cares.
Okay.
They had, they had a player, Kyren Williams. He had 16 carries for 143 yards. And then Royce Freeman had another 77 yards. And if you look at team stats, they had 228 rushing yards and 229 passing yards.
Yeah.
And you want to know what that speaks? That speaks someone running the ball because it worked. And it proved because they had just as many passing yards as rushing yards. And so I think that Kevin Stefanski outsmarted himself. He played desperate football. He played trying to come back when he really didn't need to come back. And he passed the ball too much and went away from what was working. He, as the old saying is, he broke what didn't need fixed, or he fixed what didn't need fixed. What I can't say now, but like
absolutely,
that's what he did. And so that's what kind of made everything. And he didn't run the ball when it was clearly working. I mean, like Elliot said 84 times now, it's the worst run defense in the league. And I think that's kind of what really made it hard, is we just didn't even try and do what was working.
Yeah, but those people that love supporting Stefanski will come immediately back and say, the Browns didn't execute the plays.
Yes,
And
but you can't
I'm like,
execute a play if your head coach doesn't call it.
well, I tell you, well, we have a lot more to talk about. We've been on air for about 30 minutes now, and I think we're going to say goodnight to everybody because it's been one of those evenings. And I know the Village Elliott will have more of his Oracle Speaks shows. He'll be on also later this week, probably with our Fanatical Elves show. I'm not sure if you're doing the Browniac show this week or not, but I know we have Joel Cade doing the What the Elf Was That. We have Samuel down there
Gonna be a
again.
lot of Elf was that on his show. My goodness.
That's right. Samuel's got bringing the Browns breakdowns later in the midweek and then next weekend as well before we get ready for that Los Angeles Rams game. Lots to talk about. Please tune in here to the Fanatical Elves Network. We can't do this without you. We are gaining viewerships. We're gaining downloads, and we love that. We love that you're loyal. This has been a hard day to watch the Browns. But we'll get through this. We'll move on to the next game. Village Elliott, final takes on tonight before we let you go.
Well, I just want to say that I think I was very understated in this show. And the other thing I want to say is that I really enjoyed this game because Sam had such really good, wise comments about it. And I really enjoyed you too, John, but especially I enjoyed Sam's comments. I thought they were right on, made me laugh.
He is, yeah.
And it kind of helped me overcome my anger at Kevin Stefanski.
Yes, no, I think, for a Browns fan like myself, I'll speak for myself, but as a fan who's seen this team play since the late 70s, early 80s, seen a variety of things happen to this franchise. This is one of those games where you just kind of have to move on. It was ugly. It shouldn't have come down to the way it did, but it did. I'm pissed off tonight, but we'll move on to an overreaction Monday, and then we'll start thinking about the Rams later this week. Samuel, we appreciate you too. Final thoughts here. You are wise beyond your years. Any final takes before we let you go?
Look into the Rams game. I mean, the Rams were not good at the start of the season. Then we saw Puka Nacua come out. So I think, and then like Matthew Stafford got hurt and then came back and then got hurt again. I don't know. The Rams are a weird team, but I think it's not going to be easy. I don't think any of these games are going to be easy.
We haven't beaten them in 30 years, so that's
yeah. I think the Rams just or the Bronx. Oh my God, the Browns. I think the Browns have they gotta move on. I mean, you gotta take it one game at a time. You can't linger on these games and be like, man, we should have done this. Man, we should have done that. Well, I mean, the coaches can do that, but like as a player, you're like, man, I should have made this play. You gotta move on. You gotta.
Yeah.
They had a 4-game winning streak. They had all the momentum. They were at home. They had the fans behind them. They've been playing really well. So this is kind of a game where you were matched up against a brick wall, and you had a chances to knock that brick wall down, but it was just a little too tough. And so I think we just got to move on. And I think the Bronco, man, I can't think of these teams' names. The Browns, I think if they just move on and they take it one game at a time and they pay attention to the Rams and just let go of this Broncos game, I think they'll definitely have a pretty decent chance of winning.
I hope so. Thank you both for being here on our post-game show. Everybody, stay tuned for more programming later this week on the Fanatical Elves Network. We'll be bringing shows every day of the week. The Village Elliott will have his Oracle show coming up, I'm sure, very soon as well. Thanks again, everybody. Go Browns. Browns go down to defeat at Mile High to the Broncos 29-12 tonight. Thanks for tuning in to the Fanatical Elves Network. Go Browns.